Welcome to the Boston Art Podcast,
Boston's premier art podcast,
where we talk art, culture, and philosophy.
My name is Theodore Earthworms.
And I am Brian Huntress.
Welcome to the show.
I love the like weird 10 seconds when you first start recording. You go, all right, we're going now. And it's just like...
Everybody start.
It's just like super fucking... Just such a weird feeling.
Hey, this is the first time that we've recorded in person.
That's true.
I was just thinking that.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
The first time we had you on was so funny because, like, I think we were, like, you were probably maybe the fifth or sixth interview we did or something. Like, it was really early, but it was so funny. Like, you just, like, blew our minds in such random ways.
Oh.
Like, it was a really interesting interview, but it was also so funny and shocking in a lot of, like, ways, too.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't really know each other before that, I think.
Yeah, I definitely... If I'm going to talk about art, that's probably the main way to, like, learn a lot of personal things about me the quickest.
Yeah.
Just to talk about art?
Yeah.
That makes
Especially
sense.
my own.
Why do you think that is?
Excuse me, I just think you can keep that in. I just think it's because in the past, a lot of my work has been very autobiographical, I guess. So,
Me too.
So it's hard not to talk about your personal life when that has so much influence.
It's kind of necessary context sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like I found myself, too, making artwork that was autobiographical. And then when people are kind of inquiring and talking to me about it, I've had times where I, like, shied away and didn't want to talk about myself at all. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like I turned people off of the art. Mm-hmm. Like, they liked it, how it looked. And then when they wanted to, like, get more depth, I was like, oh, it's nothing. Because I, like, was embarrassed or something. And then they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like I feel like that was a strength that I had that I didn't really have at first, where I felt too, like I had too much shame almost, where I would be really hesitant to be like, oh, this is about this experience I had, or this person.
It's so vulnerable, and actually, like, I'm trying to talk less personally because I worry about making people uncomfortable. Because, like, I mean, when you make really personal art, a lot of times you, like, kind of confront traumatic experiences. But yeah, I still make personal stuff, but it's, like, personal in a different way. Like, it's personal in a more general way, I guess, rather than, like, this is the horrible thing that happened to me. Also, like, I've been doing better, I guess, since the first time you interviewed me. So, it's probably like 2 years ago now.
Probably about, it was definitely in the first few months. We were recording.
Because I remember the first time I met you both in person was at that show that
Some
you
Assembly
had.
Required?
Yes.
That was the first time?
I think that's the first time we met in person, but we
right.
had already done one interview.
Yeah.
So I was acquainted with you, and I knew what you both looked like because of Instagram.
That's crazy.
So I was like, huh? I know, it's... There's actually an artist talk here recently by Jack Ritger about devirtualization.
Cool.
And it was all about, like, building community and relationships online. And then the devirtualization part is just sort of like when you meet in person after.
Yeah.
And, like, I've had people, like, it's so funny, like, this one guy who I've been friends with on Facebook for years, and we'll, like, comment on each other's stuff and, crack jokes. And then one day I was at JP Licks and I bumped into him and I was like, hi.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
You know, it was just like, and then like the next day we're like commenting, but it's like when we met in person, it was just like, hi, how you doing?
You are a physical being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and when me and Theo started talking and becoming friends, we were only talking on the phone for months.
Yeah.
We met once in person, but
Not really.
we started talking to each other during the first like quarantine. So we were just on the phone all day, every day for like months. But then when we first hung out in person, it was like
whoa, this
like
is so weird.
it was so fucking uncomfortable
Yeah.
at the beginning, and it was just like, how do we even deal with this?
I
I can smell you.
I know, right?
Like, I know what you smell like.
Pheromones change everything.
That's so true. Another thing that's so interesting is like, I feel like I have this thing when I'm talking. I'm doing it right now. I'm super self-conscious about it. But I can't look at people when I'm making a point because I'm thinking about what I'm saying. So I always feel like that's not a big deal when I meet somebody naturally in person because it's just how I am. But if I've been talking to someone online and then I meet them in person, I get nervous that like I don't like them or something, or they'll think that.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
I make very little eye contact, you know, because I'm on the spectrum, but like once I get to know people and I feel comfortable with them, I can make it for longer. But like, yeah, I mean, you could spend hours with me and not look me in the face once, and I would not feel the least bit slighted.
That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I get super distracted by it. You know what I'm guilty of all the time at work is
What?
I'll be talking to somebody and I'll realize that I haven't looked them in their eyes, and then I just stare in their eyes for like 2 minutes
To make up for it. Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're talking about because I'm just trying not to break eye contact. So that's the stuff I think about, because it's like you talk to someone online and that stuff isn't real, and then you meet in person and you're like, I'm so weird. I have a body. This is odd.
It kind of reminds me when I was in middle school, and in like 6th or 7th grade, that was when I like really began. I don't smoke weed anymore, but began heavily smoking weed around that time, and I remember becoming so hyper aware of eye contact, and I was also getting in trouble so much. And I remember thinking that if someone's lying to you, that they can't look at you in the eye. So with learning that and being paranoid that everyone would know I was lying and I'd get in trouble, and being high every day, I started like doing like insanely intense wide eye contact
Just
with
like
everybody, because I would be high and afraid and like just staring at me. And I remember that actually made things way worse. I think I got in more trouble because people would be like, why do you keep looking at me?
Why are your eyes bright red?
But yeah, bad times. There's just something so awful about being so young and so high all the time that like
and it doesn't get better as you get older, it just gets worse. You know,
just anxiety.
I remember as a child being like, oh, once I'm an adult I'll be free, and then it's just like obviously there's plenty of awful things about being a child that you don't have as an adult, but they get replaced by like new awful things that only adults experience.
Yeah.
You know, like not making sure you don't starve. Whereas as a child, it's like you may be forced to starve, but you have no control over it, you know, because you're not providing for yourself as a child. Right. I mean, some children do have to provide for themselves as like a means of survival, but I don't know.
Lunch debt.
Yeah.
Obscene.
Yeah, being American is really like scary.
Yeah.
I heard it described by somebody one time as a third world country in a Gucci belt.
Oof.
I mean,
wow.
Yeah, this whole idea of like development is it's like misleading, but to me it's like misleading in ways that are obvious, but I guess not that obvious because most people are like patriotic or whatever, which is gross.
Mm. And what do you make of Boston in that sense, I guess? Because like you are like a pretty much a lifelong Boston resident. Like you've been in the city forever.
I mean, it's hard to compare it to other cities in a detailed way because I think the only other city beside, so I spent like 2 weeks in the Bay Area of California, but I wasn't really like getting to know any communities there. I was just mostly there helping a friend. I've spent a lot of time in Denver randomly, just because like I have family there, and at one time I was like involved with a film festival in Colorado. Yeah, Boston is. We were actually just talking before you both got here. We were talking about how transitory Boston is. I mean, a lot of people who aren't from here, they'll come here for a job or for school, and then they'll leave as soon as they can. It's not a great city to be creative in. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Boston has so many wonderful artists and wonderful people, as does any city, really. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Boston, I find, is really... Yeah, I guess I just, like, I don't... When I was younger, I did... And I think I've talked about this with you both at length, I think, before. But some of my biggest anxieties as an artist when I was younger than let's say 10 years ago, came from just the sort of the competitiveness and the gatekeeperiness of feeling like you have to degrade yourself to a certain extent to be welcome into a community. And I understand, I mean, I feel like if you want to enter a community, the best way to enter it for me is to support the community. I mean, it's hard to expect, I mean, a lot of, I've got a lot of things where like people will invite you to their opening, but you've never, ever, ever seen them at a single opening, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, they expect you to go to theirs, and yeah, I've gotten to the point, I mean, there was definitely like a long time where like I aspired to be a famous artist. And it just like caused me so much mental anguish. And I'm a lot happier creatively now that my focus has gone to trying to play a part in building community. And as like, and that's like, as a curator, as someone who plans events. And then when it comes to my personal work, I'll propose things to galleries outside of Massachusetts, but it's not so much because I want wider exposure, but because I love the gallery. Like there are a few galleries. There's one gallery in New York. Like my favorite art gallery is in New York. which I feel like shitty even saying. But it's not like a commercial gallery. It's like a non-profit gallery that like has really been at the forefront of showing difficult queer art for, going on 30 years.
What gallery is that?
It's called Participant Incorporated.
Cool.
It's actually directed by a former curator at the ICA, but it was like not the ICA that we know now. It was like on Boylston Street in the 90s. Like I remember the new ICA, I'm pretty sure it opened when I was like a freshman at Mass Art, which would have been
really?
2006.
That's more recent than I thought.
Yeah, it's a pretty new building.
It's in one of like the newest parts of the city too, the Seaport.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Seaport is like a perfect example of why Boston is not a great city to be an artist in, because the Seaport district was like a ton of artist housing and artist studios where people could afford to live and work, and now it's just like, I know people who bought their studios in the late 70s and they can sell their studio now for $2 million. I mean, it's really...
We've met a bunch of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I know I don't know how immersed you were in the community then, but I mean, I know you had that show with Walter.
Good time.
Was that last spring?
It was a year ago. Actually, I just saw on my Facebook that opening was a year ago today, I think.
Yeah.
Shit.
Weirdly enough.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was a very interesting event because the curator that basically
Dwayne?
Yeah, Dwayne, who spearheaded the whole thing for us, has been involved in the Fort Point art community since he was like in his 20s, and I think I hope this isn't insulting because I don't know how old he is, but I think he's like 70, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, but what's interesting about him is that he actually I shouldn't say anything that I was about to say.
What were you?
I was just about to talk out of my ass about
He looks good for 70.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but not even his age. But I guess one
That's
thing
true, I think.
All right, I don't want to say anything that like would
Just
be
do it.
condemning.
We can just cut it out.
But
it's our podcast.
he doesent like conservative art, and I don't mean conservative politically. I mean conservative with like a lowercase c, like architecture shit, like color field painting, like the type of shit that you'd see hanging in a bank, or like the lobby of a new apartment building.
So decorative.
Yeah, it's so decorative art, and it's just like that is the Fort Point and that part of Boston and that whole world is dominated by, art for developments, art for hotels, art for this, art for the corporate art loan programs and shit. And like,
oh yeah, I mean, I've had jobs that it was all decorated with like that corporate art where artists will like rent their work, and
it's big money.
I hate to say it, but I mean, it's mostly just garbage.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I think a lot of the artists that make it think it's garbage too, which is
money.
like disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, and it sucks to be poor. Like, I don't want to pretend like I have no sympathy for artists who, because if you're an artist and you don't feel like, sorry, this painting is crooked and it's giving me anxiety. If you're an artist and like making art is what you're good at and comfortable doing, I mean, you it's ideal to make I mean, I make art for money.
Yeah.
I don't show it to people, but like, I definitely, there is some art that I do that has absolutely nothing to do with my interests or creative practices. It's mostly just like things nerds collect, I make copies of serial killer paintings.
like John Wayne Gacy
Yeah,
type shit.
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because at one time I collected serial killer art, and then the community, I just hated it.
Yeah.
Like I was always interested in the sort of just like ephemera of a horrid American crime and just like, you know, the human capacity for that. But everyone who collects what they call murderabilia is, they were just like, they thought serial killers were cool. And I'm just like, that's gross.
Yeah.
So I stopped. But I started making, I was like, oh, people love this shit. And so I started making oil copies of the painting I used to own, which was one of the Pogo the Clown ones, and people buy it.
Oh, wow.
But like, I would never make that if it wasn't for people buying it.
Right.
You know, 'cause, like, artists have to eat.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And so it is disheartening when, and it's not just, and that goes back to my interest in building like local communities. Is I feel like people, a lot of people aren't confident in their own tastes. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's hard to be confident in your own tastes when you've never been told it's okay. You know, most people are exposed to what they're exposed to growing up, and that conditions your tastes in some ways. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people who collect art, especially rich art collectors, it's all about assets and investments. You know, I work for a fine art framer. Most of our clients are commercial galleries in Manhattan, banks in Manhattan, museums, Manhattan. You know, we have some clients in like Texas, Houston, Texas. But like all the big galleries. I won't name the frame shop or the galleries who are our clients because, and I have you know, I'm happy at my job, but like when you all your framing is like commercially sold artwork that, you know, I mean, it's very common for us to frame like some minimalist print that by an artist I've never heard of, and it's like $400, but like it's what's that minimalist artist who does like pretty much just like very solid matte squares of like solid colors.
Rothko?
No, he's
Newer?
after Rothko. He's still alive.
Oh, I see.
And it's way more clean than Rothko.
Is it the ones that are just squares and there's usually like a border of blank canvas around the edges too?
They're usually on paper.
Oh.
It'll come to me maybe. He has one of those first names that sounds like a last name.
It's not Cy Twombly, is it?
No.
He died.
Oh, he's okay. I thought he was
He just had a show at MFA.
still hanging there. I
Yeah.
think,
I kind of wanted to see it, but I just like...
I got to look through the exhibition book, and it was some pretty interesting stuff. I didn't read any of the theory because it's like incredibly dense, but the pictures were cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, it's disheartening. I mean, you know, every once in a while, an artist who really is interested in making uncompromising work does get credit, but not often. And another thing is like people, and I get this, you know, I'm prone to depression. Like people don't typically want to hang art in their houses that's going to make them feel sad or depressed. And a lot of my favorite art anyway isn't going to make you in a good mood.
Yeah.
And it's, it's tough. It's like the Gate of Heaven show I did. It's like, I had all that stuff for free, and I still had most of it by the end. It's like, oh, okay, you can't even give this shit away. Which was fine. Like, I don't blame people for not wanting, like, like erect penises with feces coming out of them, like, on their wall. Like, okay, I get that. Like, maybe it's not pleasant. You have dinner guests, or you're just feeling depressed and you want to be in a good mood.
Something for the man cave.
Yeah, I mean, I really, even like in my own home, like I wouldn't want to hang my own fucking paintings. Like I just want cute things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't care even about beauty. I care more about cuteness than beauty.
I put a lot of the stuff that I make in the closet. If it's something that's like heavy or aggressive looking, I'm like, that's like I get it out and they don't want to look at it every day, you know?
Yeah.
No, I mean ugliness is beautiful, but like in a more complicated way. And when I say ugliness, I don't mean like the opposite of conventional beauty standards. I just mean like difficult, unhappiness as ugliness.
Yeah, I've been going through a lot of my own work and trying to square it with this idea of hanging work and trying to sell work and stuff, because I recently sold a few paintings to somebody, and they went through this massive body of work of mine, and they chose 2 paintings that were the least representational, the least complicated, and like the most easy. Like it was almost like elevator music paintings, and they were like the only 2 things I had in my entire catalog that looked like that. And I just thought it was interesting that out of like 1,000 selections, the person honed in on the least offensive imagery they could possibly find. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I guess, like, I don't know, like, is there an element, like, is there like a, when you're making art like that, is there a kind of, are you kind of forced to make like ambient work on the side almost in order to square away that kind of allegoric figurative work that's like something that you actually mean, like this idea of like dicks with feces shooting out of them versus something that, I don't know, like if you were going to make something more decorative.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think, has a lot to do with like, do you want to live off your art, or do you want to just essentially make the art for yourself, and whoever wants to look at it gets to, but you're not necessarily making it with an audience in mind. And I don't necessarily even think all the best art is purely for the artist. I mean, like being engaged with an audience or with your community is important, especially if you're an artist with a marginalized identity and you're trying to comfort and welcome other members of your community. And I've been shying away, every once in a while. It still comes out. It still comes out sometimes, but much less. Like I've been shying away from like the work in the Gate of Heaven exhibit because it alienates people. Because it's about alienating stuff. I mean, it's about just like personal horrors and things like that, and like traumatic childhood shit. And yeah, everyone has like a traumatic childhood, but it's like it's not expressed in a direct way. It's like, oh, there's like one of my favorite childhood cartoon characters, but he's like cut in half and masturbating. And it's like, also a lot of work like that, it gets dismissed as being for shock value. And I don't really think or care about shock value. I mean, I don't mind shocking people, but I get no thrill out of it. It's more just like when you're making stuff about like a lot of true life, most of true life is ugly and shocking. And so like, our response to that's going to be ugly and shocking, but it's not necessarily about making someone shocked or making them feel bad.
Yeah.
What I loved about that body of work with that show was that it was really horrifying imagery that, you know, did make you feel uncomfortable. But what I loved about it was that you paired it with, maybe this, I don't know if this is completely intentional, but you paired it with comedy in a way, where it's like you looked at these things that were scary or very clearly about something, you know, horrifying, but, you know, there was a way that you could kind of, I don't know, almost have a laugh. Or I don't know exactly, but
yeah, I mean, I kind of think of it, if there's comedy there, I don't think of it as trying to lighten the mood as much as, like, I think life is sometimes so horrifying that all you can do is laugh to cope. But I don't think it's funny that life is horrifying. I mean, I personally, you know, at my lowest points, I found that I sort of would get into a state of just like crazed laughter because I was like too shocked to cry or something.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like, I think like suffering and trauma are like not funny at all. But if there is any humor, it's that our individual suffering feels so profound, but suffering is completely universal. And that's not to say that, like, obviously some people suffer much less than others. You know, but being alive is violent, you know, just like, you know, you're like growing inside of a controlled environment for 9 months, and then suddenly you're just like, here you are in the world doing all your own breathing and eating, and it's like, and I don't feel like you ever completely adjust.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like horrific. But yeah, I don't know. We live in a climate now where I'm much less willing to alienate people through my work than I was before, because I feel like now connection and community are so important. And if I need to not make certain things in order to make certain people feel more at ease around me, I would rather that. You know?
I think it's interesting you say that, though, because after the Gates of Heaven show, while that work was scary, every single time I drive through Southie and I stumble upon that church, the church makes me feel that way. Like, I see that building and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I want to drive away from this building.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that way about you. I think that way about that church.
Yeah, I mean, I was a child, you know, and that body of work, the reason I used so much childhood iconography is because, for me, like, the main theme was sort of like the corruption of childhood. And so, like, when you actually think about the types of media children consume, which is mostly children's shows, but then a child also is exposed to really ugly things. I mean, whether it's your parents have a horrible relationship, and, you know, a child can't really, like, wrap their head around why are my parents screaming and swearing at each other? Why is the pastor of my church telling me I'm gonna burn in hell? What, you know, all these things. And it's like, there's a huge disconnect between the sort of sweet comfort of children's media and the horrors of real life. And so I was like trying to create a world where the innocence of childhood and the horror like intersect and kind of battle each other. And I feel like if there is any comedy, it kind of comes from that.
Which is interesting, because if you think about the way that a child would be rationalizing those things, or like what they'd be comparing them to or looking for answers from, it would be the media they're consuming, the books that they're reading. Like, that's how kids experience the rest of the world when they're in that kind of controlled environment. It's like your family, the people that you might meet through your family, and whatever you're reading or looking at or watching.
Yeah. And you also don't, or I don't want to say this in general, but as a child, I did not understand that adults were evil. I didn't get it. I thought, like, okay, you're an adult, you're the responsible one.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. And then when you become an adult, you just realize adults are just children.
Nobody's steering the ship.
No, I mean, you're trying to figure shit out till the day you die.
Yeah.
And if you tell yourself you figured shit out, you're lying. Or that's my take anyway. So I mean, but yeah, going back to just like the difference between purely expressive art and decorative art, it's hard, and there are also people who would say that their decorative art is purely expressive. And some of my favorite artists were minimalists, but I feel like minimalist ideas are much harder to like backpack on top of than figurative ideas. There's a lot. I feel like there's a lot more you can do with figurative art, whereas like to make a good minimalist or abstract art, it's much harder to differentiate one artist's work from the other.
That's true.
Yeah, I also wonder like if the appreciation of figurative art could be more related to the appreciation of literature, where like there's something kind of just ambient and like unimposing about abstract art versus like, I don't know, take a book like Night by Eli Wiesel or something. Like if that was a painting, you wouldn't want it hanging up in your bedroom or your dining room, you know, like Holocaust imagery or something. But we look at those books and we cherish them as like pieces of like culture, and we promote them, we make kids read them and shit. But we're not, you know, we're like, we don't necessarily want to be thinking about that book all the time.
Well, it's interesting.
But we're making sure everybody's read it and knows about it. I don't know. I like wonder if there's something kind of like that.
Unfortunately, they're trying to stop people from reading.
Oh, right now that's actually a good point. Yeah. Forgot about that.
Yeah. Was that book Mouse?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the graphic novel,
which is about the Holocaust. Yeah, like I heard that's been getting banned from schools.
That's terrible.
Yeah. But yeah, I forget. Sorry. I have a very non-linear way of speaking about things. I'll like say a word and then that word will make me think of something and then I'll just start talking about that thing.
Please do.
So I have no idea how we got here or even where we are necessarily.
Right.
In the conversation. Like I know where I am geographically. At least I hope I do. Right.
That's definitely helpful. Speaking of where we are geographically, I guess, we're in your brand new gallery, Shoe Bones.
Yeah.
Was this a massive project making this happen, or was it like I get what's the story of how this place opened up?
So it was. I've wanted for years. You know when you just like you have like some sort of fantasy, but you don't really like pay a lot of mind to it, and like the fantasy wasn't fully developed because like when I first started, like if I had opened a gallery, I mean I didn't have any resources at all, when I first started thinking about it, but like if I had then it just would not, I didn't have the capacity at the time. And it was just always something I thought about, and I like, I just realized one day that I was collecting art because I was, I would do a lot of trades with friends, and then you like, oh, I have this collection, and then, and then a lot of my collection just comes from like me being reckless and irresponsible. I've like maxed out credit cards to buy art, and it's like, why? I don't know. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can sell it for more than I paid for it, but like that can be difficult. I've been into curating. Like I've been sort of a independent curator for like 10 years. I had a couple of contracts at like big venues, mostly as a film programmer. And then for a few years, I shared a large studio with a bunch of people in Charlestown, right on the Somerville border. And then, I think, I honestly can't even remember. It's like at some point in the last few years, I ended up in a situation where I could have, someone offered me, someone I knew offered me money to go to grad school. And I knew I didn't want that. And I said, oh, would you consider helping me open a gallery? And so they gave me some money to do this. And it's, just enough money that, I can pay the rent for a year.
Wow.
And hopefully not sink. And it was, very generous, and I'm very thankful. And truthfully, I mean, if they hadn't, I would have tried to take out a personal loan. I guess it all really started hard because I had this cable access show on Somerville Cable Access called Queer Cats, and it was like it was basically an interview show, and I would interview queer people, mostly artists, and then each episode would feature one queer person's cat. And I just realized, like, even though a lot of my like work has felt cathartic in the sense that, like, if you fixate on some trauma enough and you make enough work about it, like, it does relieve some of that tension. But it's like going to therapy. It's like, okay, you went to therapy, you got things out of your system, but the process of getting it out of your system is very emotional. But I found that, like, looking outward instead of inward wasn't emotionally jarring. It was comforting, because feeling like you're alone in the world is, to me, one of like the worst feelings. And I don't mean that romantically or platonically. I just mean like alone in your ideas, alone in how you navigate, and to know that, to realize there are lots of people who relate to your struggles, and you end up having affectionate feelings for people, because you're like, oh wow, like you know, people can, yeah, I mean, I think it's much easier to like want to know somebody if you like feel like you can relate to each other's experiences. And it's like, to me, it's like the opposite of alienating. And I was like, oh, okay, I love like, and I met so many friends doing that show and acquaintances, and you know, I met so many great artists, and I became a fan of so many different people's stuff who I never would have met if it wasn't for that. And I was like, oh, I would love to do something like that. And you know, I would independently curate stuff, but never anything where I was able to make anywhere close to a steady income. You know, I mean, I've always been, you know, the poor artist thing. And, you know, I'm still quite poor, except that I have this gallery that has a precarious amount of money, you know. Like, you know, if there was like one financial misstep, you know, that would be that, you know. So I just like, I don't, yeah, it's not, you know, it's scary. It's scary. And I don't mean this in like a self-pitying way. It's like scary for anybody who tries to like be self-employed or, you know, try to do something like this, especially when it's not an obvious commercial gallery, you know. Yeah.
What do you?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna. What do you? I wonder, like, is there something that you wish that, you know, people doing like arts administration and gallery work at corporate or high-end galleries, even in Boston, like, is there something from your perspective that you wish they knew, I guess, just about regular artists or queer artists or people that aren't operating with like major backing?
Yeah, I wish they knew that the artists they don't support are better and more important than the fucking artists they do support. And I think most importantly, they have to stop, and I feel very strongly about this, they have to stop towing the liberal line. The only time marginalized artists get shown in spaces like that is when they fit into the present identity politics narrative, you know. So you don't get to be angry. You don't get to be outraged. All you get to be is, oh, here's, you know, what's the term? Jesus Christ. Don't say what just happened. That didn't happen. It was only I fell. Just tell the audience that I fell on the floor. Speaking of precariousness. Yeah, so all right. So yeah, the only time marginalized artists get shown in big commercial galleries is when it fits into the current liberal narrative of whatever that is.
Yeah.
So with trans people, it's representation, whatever that means. Which, yeah, there is a collective representation of trans people, but like trans people are also each individuals, and what about that? You know, and like, yeah, the horror and outrage and confusion gets rejected. And yeah, those things are not decorative. But yeah, I mean, most of those commercial galleries are just high-end retail. That's
Yeah.
all they are. And the artists who show there are making high-end, I mean, they're making shit, you know? I mean, literally, when I was talking earlier about having some sympathy for artists who make purely decorative work to make a living, I'm not talking about those artists. I'm talking about people like, oh, you might, you know, sell a cute abstract painting at a craft fair that you didn't care that much about for under $100. I'm not talking about people who sell, you know, one edition of 100 prints for 40 grand. Those people should fuck themselves, and they're basically just fascists as far as I'm concerned. And the gallerists who show them are no better. I mean, fuck those places. They serve no purpose other than, you know, the capitalist purpose, which is to just sort of exploit and deprive as many people as possible of resources. You know, I mean, how many people do you know own original art? I don't know very many. Most people don't even realize you can own original art.
Yeah.
Most people think, oh, you know, art is always so expensive. And yeah, it often is. But I mean, if you go out there and you try to meet artists, you'll often be able to get work more affordably. And then people end up buying those like canvas prints at Home Goods.
Which are often kind of expensive too.
Yeah, and it
That's a good
sucks
point.
for the person buying them, and it sucks for the young, poor, or old, poor artist who's not getting their work purchased. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of conversations happening right now, like with museums and shit about like change the museum or like include these people or just don't, you know, stop making shows about dead white people and shit like this. But a lot of people at the same time have like many complaints about how that's happening and how it just feels like neoliberal, like circle jerking, you know, kind of like what you were saying about just whatever's fitting the identity politics narrative. And like, you know, I feel like we've only covered, you know, private gallery kind of stuff too, but like it's almost like the museum world's its own completely different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I support affirmative action, but I don't support, and it's not just in art, it's in, you know, when you look at companies that want to have more diverse hiring. Well, the people in power are still white men. Maybe, you know, other, like they'll hire, but like, you know, the power structures are still the same. And when marginalized people are in positions of power, it's usually because they have played by the rules of oppressive forces, you know.
And it's difficult and interesting too when you think about that in like the terms of hiring people into positions like that too, or into positions where maybe in the past it had been occupied by like rich white men or just rich white people that come from generations of that kind of social capital. There's career mentorship and like financial education and kind of like educational privileges that they're born into, that they have, that give them an advantage over somebody that's first generation in that role of any kind of marginalized background, who now you have the job and you're in that position, but you're being held to a standard of knowing things you have no access to. Like there's a sort of mentorship that if you're really trying to help that person out as the person hiring them, that you should be giving them access to as well. It's more than just the job title or the inclusion in the exhibition or whatever you're talking about.
Well, even in general, like some of the most self-identifying progressive people still adhere to respectability politics, which I completely hate that shit. It's like, if you want to support poor people, but you can't handle someone who's rough around the edges saying things you're not used to people saying, well, then you're not actually doing the work, you know.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody is going to be a middle class, polite person.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like rich people can't also be rough around the edges, because sure they can, but it's like when you think of the sort of average young white leftist who's whatever, I mean, you know, I mean, they'll cancel someone who didn't know any better just as quickly as they'll cancel someone who did.
Mm.
And, you know, I mean, I don't really like using the word cancel because I don't, you know.
It feels loaded.
Well, yeah, I mean, this whole idea of like cancel culture is like really complicated, you know. Because on the one hand, yeah, it's people are being held accountable in ways that they hadn't in the past, and that is important. But then on the other hand, I mean, people do try to maliciously ruin each other's lives by any means necessary. And anytime a progressive tool gets introduced, people will use it as a weapon too, if they can, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and that kind of like part of the reason like I'm trying to have this be like a queer and outsider gallery is because I'm like trying to distance myself as much as possible from academic culture. And then when I do have academic ideas presented here, I want them to be maybe theoretical or analytical, but criticize a mainstream academic culture. Because,
what does that look like to you?
Well, I just think like going to school is a privilege.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have some of my best friends are college professors. And so I have a hesitance to say this, but I really believe it. It's like you cannot trying to fix a university from within is like trying to fix the Democratic Party from within. You can't do it. It's impossible. And how can you fix something within that is kept from so many people?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, even it's like, okay, well, you can't afford college. Well, you can go to a public college. Well, public colleges aren't free either. And if you do go to a public college, well, how do you get into the public college? Oh, well, you have to, you know, get accepted. But what if you went to a terrible school and your grades were terrible and no one supported you and you had a terrible home life and you were hungry and you were more focused on surviving than you ever were on your schooling? So now all of these things are just completely kept from you.
Yeah.
And there are people who have been ostracized from academia and also just art, creative culture in general, and then they say, well, like, fuck it, I'm gonna just like look at a bunch of art, figure it out for myself, and now I'm an artist. And a lot of times those people are better artists than artists with master's degrees.
That's true.
You know, and you know, not every self-taught artist is good, but I often find that like self-taught artists' work can have a visionary quality that going through years of school can kind of like dim that visionary quality. Because when you're like, critiques have value, but when you're sitting in critiques all day, you become more and more self-conscious. And
Yeah.
the more self-conscious you become, it changes how you make work. I mean, I know so many people, they go to grad school. When they come out of grad school, their work, it's like two different artists,
Yeah.
you know.
And the thing too about critique that is really interesting is that it's all like it's helpful to get other perspectives on your work, but it is all really subjective. Like they're all opinions at the end of the day.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're shitty opinions.
Yeah.
Ellsworth Kelly. Sorry. That
Oh,
was
that's
the
the
artist whose name I
Oh,
was
okay,
trying to
gotcha.
remember earlier.
Oh, we'll have to look that up.
Yeah, sorry. That's how I am. I'll just like yell something out later. All right, well now that's out of my system.
I'll remember it better now.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of artists just basically make Ellsworth Kelly knockoffs, but still somehow sell them for thousands of dollars. But yeah.
And talking too about that idea of changing something from within or something being so corrupt that it can't be changed from within, I kind of wonder if there's a bit of a toxic relationship that galleries have to museums, in the sense that the galleries are so stuffy and the museums are so stuffy and conservative and unchanging that it like puts the ball into the court of private high-end galleries in the sense. And it's almost like, I don't know if you're like an online brain broken person like me, but there's this conversation about Mr. Beast curing blind people, if you heard about that, where probably not by the look of your face, where it's like this idea of a millionaire, this like super fucking rich guy saving people with preventative blindness while the government isn't lifting a finger to help these people, where it's like this idea of the government not providing any help for anybody, and it puts it in the hands of capitalism where it's only rich people doing charity stunts to help
exactly,
people.
they're stunts.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this idea where the museum is so slow to change that it puts the ball into the court of literal just for-profit high-end retail that's like, we're the new thing. We're new or something.
Yeah.
But they're worse.
Yeah.
They might be worse.
But also, those galleries don't discover great artists. People buy those work because the gallery shows it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you got a show at Pace Gallery, you are basically guaranteed wealth. You know, I mean, if Pace Gallery wanted to like show terrible art, which of course it often does, that terrible art will sell because the Pace Gallery showed it, you know. Yeah.
Which makes it almost just like any other business. Like it doesn't really even matter what you're making as long as you know the right people can get yourself in that room.
Yeah, it's like a sneaker line that puts out like the most unappealing pair of shoes, but everyone still buys them because it's like a lot of Balenciaga shoes I wouldn't be caught dead in. That's just me. I mean, some people love Balenciaga. I don't. Yeah, but people still buy it. I guess that's just a matter of taste. I should be less hostile to people with different tastes than mine. But I feel less guilty about it when it's like something that costs a ton of money.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because all of that speaks to the importance of places like this that are focused on outsider artists. Because if you think about the term outsider and like what that really means, if you're looking at an arts community that is that, or an arts market that is that selective and so difficult to access, most of us are outsider artists, really.
Yeah. I mean, most artists are outsider in terms of the art world. And also, the definition of outsider art is like always kind of up for debate.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the most basic definition is just artists who are self-taught. But then there's also you know, a lot of like people associate it with like artists who are in, you know, like hospitals and aren't connected to society, and yeah, you know, but I don't really respect people who strive to be one day represented by a blue chip gallery. Like I just like I get it, okay, but then it's like what you were talking about earlier. So then what? Now you're rich. Now you're in a position to do performative charity, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And in terms of all that I mean, like, aside from all that bullshit, I mean, like, I've seen on Instagram and the shit you're putting out here, it's like, seems like you're building like real meaningful community and experiences in this gallery that like actually literally just actually make people happy.
Yeah.
And fill up people's hearts. You know, how could you talk about some of the openings that you've had here so far, or some of the events maybe?
So I've had 2 exhibit openings. One is the current show, which is called Every Flower Dies, by an artist named John Henn, who's based in Lawrence. He was born in 1993, I think. He's a self-taught artist. And that, yeah, I mean, his works kind of like walks a line between like autobiographical and like sort of visionary fantasy work. And also has like a lot of, like, I think he did like street art before he started making paintings on, you know, canvas. And then the first exhibit, like the grand opening exhibit, Selections from Within, that was, excuse me, that was like 18 or 19 different artists' work. That event was ridiculous. There were probably 70 people here.
Wow.
Not at once, but throughout the night. I mean, the whole night, it was like a sardine can in here.
That's cool.
Yeah, I actually got, like, I had multiple panic attacks that night.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that sucked.
Was it as a result of the event?
Just all the people.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm kind of, like, I've taken a indefinite and possibly permanent break from alcohol because, yeah, I mean, often, you know, I have really bad social anxiety. And it's funny that I, like, opened a gallery because I hate art openings. They're, like, some of my least favorite events. Like, I love to go to them. Like, I don't like being there, but I like to go there because usually the artist is there and I want them to know I want to be one more face that supported it, you know, because, like, if you go just during gallery hours, the support might not feel the same.
Yeah. They might not know you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I've had openings and a bunch of people I know are there, you know, you feel that sense of community, and it's really reassuring. And like, you know, to me, like, community and support are like the most important parts of art, you know, way more than your individual vision. But that's just me. And I don't think the two are mutual. I have reflexes. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. Like, I think you can totally entertain your individual visions while being very connected to those around you. But yeah, honestly, like, the exhibits are kind of my baby here. but I mostly do that to like make myself happy
Yeah.
and to promote artists that I believe in, but I don't expect for most of the cash flow here to come from selling the exhibited art. The only time I ever really have make sales or make money is when I'm having events. But also, like, you know, all the events are sliding scale, no one turned away, which, you know, from a business perspective is risky, because maybe 20 people will come to the event, but none of them are able to pay. And you don't make money. And, you know, I mean, you know, it's always hard to kind of find the line between having an accessible space that everyone feels welcome at, but also like being able to keep the place open.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's hard and it's, you know, scary, but it's like gratifying. I mean, I've already met a ton of people who, yeah, I mean, like a lot of just like queer people, local queer people come to the drawing groups, and it's just like so nice, and it's just like hangout sessions basically, except we're drawing. And yeah, like I want more of that, you know. Like I mean, a lot of times someone will come here and they'll stay for like an hour just chatting, and you know, like I like literally want this to be the type of place you can like come like lay on the floor if you want, you know. Like I don't want it to be like, I don't know, I just want like the right people to feel welcome here.
Yeah. Because places like this, they create an opportunity for those people to kind of come out of the woodwork, where it's honestly really hard to find people that, like, if you're an outsider artist and you're used to working on your own and you're maybe not even exhibiting your work or anything, like you're not really necessarily connected to community at all. Like you have to go out of your way to seek that, and this would be the kind of place where you would seek that, you know. That's really cool. That's an invaluable contribution.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I mean, you know, I care about making enough money to keep the place open and to support myself, but that's all I really, like, honestly, like, the whole business aspect of it is, like, the thing I hate.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it. I'm not good at it. I hate, like, doing the books. I'm, like, I can barely do basic math. You know, thankfully, Intuit QuickBooks is, like, kind of user-friendly. And even that I struggle with, you know.
Never had to do that kind of thing in my life.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I don't, it's, like, shit. And, like, yeah, like, having to constantly think about that is like, it sucks.
Yeah.
And you know, it comes with the territory. You want to open a small business in the United States, like you are made to suffer. You know, you
punished for trying.
Yeah, I mean, everything. It's not. Yeah, especially a small business that isn't catering to a mainstream consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's tough, but I don't know, having it be a community space is the most important thing for me. You know, having the exhibits is just like every once in a while I'll sell paintings, but it's like a way to do, like, I love curating other people's work. But I care just as much about all the other stuff here. Like, I have more stuff coming in. Like, I have 2 more clothing racks back there that I've not put together yet. And then I have, like, a bunch more clothes coming and a bunch of, like, jewelry coming. And just, like, yeah, I just, like, I don't know. I have a lot of, it's kind of hard to articulate, I guess. But yeah, it's important to me that the gallery here is sort of, I don't want to say the complete antithesis of a commercial gallery, but like I want it to be a place where people feel like welcome and not exclusive. Like, if you wanted to walk in off the street and show me your paintings, like, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because, like, I want to, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, you know. It's like everything. You have an idea of how something's going to be, and then when it happens, it feels different than how you thought it would feel. So yeah, I'm still at the point where, like, there have been a lot of wonderful moments and connections, but it's still, there's so much anxiety that it's hard to, like, enjoy it, because now I'm running a business and you have to figure out ways to keep the business open.
And you must be so busy too, because did you say you're still working at the frame shop also?
Yeah, I mean, I am busy and I'm often overwhelmed, but, like, and I definitely need to find a better balance. But, like, I'm the type of person, I've realized it's good for me to be busy, because, like, I try to watch TV 3 or 4 times a week and lay in bed with my laptop on my chest. But if I relax too much, that's when my thoughts get the better of me.
Yeah.
That's when my insecurities creep up and my social paranoias. And so I just feel like keeping busy is one of the best things I can do for my mental health, and also go to therapy and take my medication. Yeah, those 3 things, like busyness, and even, like, even, like, basic busy things. It's like when I get really upset and I feel like I'm going to start crying, I'll start washing dishes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't enjoy washing dishes, but I'll, like, somehow that, the just sort of repetitive, ritualistic activity. Yeah, I don't know.
I relate to that. I feel like any time that I block out time, like if we don't have interviews on the weekends, or if we don't have anything that we're doing together, and then I'm not doing anything and I have, like, just an afternoon to myself, I just, like, clean or something. Or generating all the time.
And, being, some people, like, I don't know what the average amount of time a person spends alone is.
Interesting.
Like, some people need to be alone more than others. I don't like being alone. I think it's just because, like, I was an only child. I spent so much time alone growing up.
Yeah.
And I just don't like it, I mean, the one time I lived alone, I, like, lived with my cat, so it wasn't entirely lonely. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like we relate a lot to. I guess I could probably speak for both of us in the idea of like with the gallery, like doing like work that you've, like that's been built up and feels so profound and so much is on the line. Like probably less with our podcast than you because we don't have an overhead, but we talk all the time about like the show. Like we love doing this, but we talk all the time about how sometimes it just feels like we're just being like punched in the face for no fucking like, or just doing a ridiculous amount of work for like nothing, or like, you know what I mean? Like where we believe in what we're doing so much, but like there are some times where it just feels like
it's
I don't know, like
akin
awful.
to like volunteering or community service or something, where some days it feels so rewarding and so important, and sometimes you're just like, I'm so fucking tired. Like I don't, you know what I mean? And I think it's weird because I feel like art is something that never should have been, like if there was a god in the sky, he would not have made it related to your income. Like money shouldn't be related to art at all. But
I don't think money should really be related to anything.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true.
This idea that there's like, limited resources, it's like,
yeah,
there's definitely enough to go around and then some.
Yeah.
And I feel so strongly that way that I often feel like I'm a total hypocrite just for doing this. Charging people money for stuff that I believe should be free. At the same time, I mean, you can be as anti-capitalist as you want, but you still need to survive.
Yeah, you can't opt out, really.
No, you need to. I mean, people work for survival. They shouldn't have to, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But here we are. And it's like, yeah, I relate to what you're saying. It completely changes when money is involved. It's like, when I did that exhibit over the summer, I wanted to have everything be available for free, mostly because I thought it would be like a cathartic thing. Like, all right, I'm getting rid of all this shit. That is all about like shittiness, and it's like the only money I lost was the materials, and you could say my labor time. But I don't care because all that stuff was mine. And I had a full-time job when that show happened. I mean, right now, like, luckily I broke even last month. This month I've not. And, there's like a lot of money that I'm going to make, going to need to make before I could ever say that I've turned a profit at all. And yeah, when you start having to do art stuff and you have to make money doing it in order to keep it going. I mean, I'm only learning now. I mean, I had ideas about how awful and stressful it would be, but now that I'm here, it's just like terrifying, you know?
Well, it's interesting because, like, if you think about it, if you're looking at it from just a business perspective or a financial standpoint, like, if that's your goal, art is not the way to go.
No.
Like, it's a poor business decision to be an artist at all. But the thing about it that is horrible is then I guess what you're saying, if you think about it like that, is like that it's a privilege of the elite to even express, which is so antithetical to what I believe, that it's like, well, I'm going to keep fucking doing it.
Well, I think academically and commercially it is. I mean, there are definitely, like, sometimes every once in a very, very great while, a self-taught artist without any academic ties will become very famous and get gallery representation. And there is now, I mean, now it's like at the point, and it has been for a while, where like outsider art is considered a genre. And artists who either live in like mental health facilities or artists who have intellectual disabilities. I mean, there are entire galleries, like one of my favorite galleries that I've like bought a few things from is called Sage Studio. It's in Austin, Texas. Like I bought these doll sets. I bought from them. I forget the artist. His first name's Beverly.
These pipe cleaners?
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
so cool.
Yeah. And I love them so much.
Oh, they're heavier than I would have thought.
Let me find out the artist's name. Oh, okay, no, Beverly's his last name. It's Montrell Beverly. Yeah, and so a lot of outsider art that ends up at like art fairs and things, there will be galleries that are also sort of double as day programs where disabled adults will go during the day as their sort of government funded programs, but then also the work they make gets sold for lots of money and they make income.
Yeah.
Like my favorite contemporary artist, his name's Anthony Coleman, and he's a disabled artist from Philadelphia, and his like work is like so amazing, but he's like, the opposite of a academic artist. He's a self-taught artist who's intellectually disabled. And yeah, and so a lot like art like that does sell at like art fairs sometimes. I forgot how we got there though.
Who could say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope like this hasn't been like too negative of a conversation, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, I think one of the reasons that we love talking to you too is because like, it's so easy to get so wrapped up in the stupid bullshit and conventions of galleries and museums and their expectations and what they impose on people. But what I love about what you do is that you don't fucking care at all. You just love what you're doing, and you're like just being like fuck you, stupid ass people.
I mean, I care about like I certainly care how a lot of people feel, but it's the types of people I would like in my life or to surround myself with. And those people I care actually quite a bit how they feel about me and what I do. But it's institutions that I wouldn't even say I don't care as much as I'm literally hostile toward them.
Gotcha.
I'm not indifferent, I believe in like dismantling them. But the people involved in those worlds are people I don't want anything to do with socially. I don't even want to speak to them, And I do have a few friends who are very successful, famous artists whose work sells for a ton of money. But they're in that exception of artists whose work sells for a ton of money, but their work is the work they want to be making.
Yeah. Just the dream. Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, I often wish that they maybe like did better things with their money than live a rich lifestyle, but you know, you can't force anyone until the revolution happens, and it will. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's easier for me to talk about just like my own stuff. Like this is I'm learning every minute of trying to do this. And it's very rewarding. But the rewarding thing isn't really having like running a space. The rewarding thing is like just feeling like I'm connected to like-minded people. And yeah, you know, it's important to be happy and have community when the world is so hostile, you know. And it's like, think about art. I mean, art is very important to me, but it doesn't transcend anything. It's like art is a form of communication, and, you know, hopefully you use art to express things that you couldn't express in another way. But like, when my life falls apart, art doesn't do shit. It's the people who love me that do shit. And so people are more important than art, you know?
Yeah.
So like, that's the most important part for me, you know? Not to be sentimental, but like, I actually am a pretty sentimental person. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think that's, like you were tying it to the podcast, I think that's pretty similar to what we try to do. Like, at the end of the day, the reason it's worth it is because of all the people that we get to meet and the things we get to experience along the way of doing it. And maybe that's why art with the intent of making money or the intent of getting famous or something doesn't, like, it just hits wrong, because it's almost like it alienates that community to be in competition like that, in my experience anyway. I don't know. Like, if you're all trying to sell money to this, I mean, sell pieces for money to the same people, or like trying to price better than other people, and like, I don't know, it's just, there's a sort of like adversarial element to it when it's all about like the bottom line versus just putting it out there and who finds it and resonates with it, actually making connections with those people.
And I get that we're all conditioned. I mean, we're all raised in this society where we're taught that, you know, being cutthroat is how you survive. But it's completely arbitrary. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there are way more artists in the world than there are artists who make money off their work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tiny little, barely even, you need a microscope to see the fraction of artists who support themselves from artwork, you know.
But there are a lot of artists that can build happy lives and like a sustainable lifestyle by engaging with their community and by going to doing and making what makes them feel good.
Yeah, I mean, and that's more important. And it's, you know, it totally sucks that yeah, I mean, even I've thought about trying to turn this into a collective but I don't feel right about expecting people to pay money to be a part of it, you know. I mean, South End collectives, they have really high dues. I forget, is it Caiaphas or one of those galleries? One of them's a collective, and it's like, you know, you pay all this money and then you're guaranteed like a show every 2 years or something.
Every 2 years.
I was talking to one, I won't say the name, but they pitched this whole thing to me and they made it sound awesome. And I was like, yeah, this does sound like a really great thing. And I saw the price and it was like $3,000 like a year or something.
Oh yeah, it's
I was like, what the fuck? Who the fuck is signing up for this?
Yeah, no, it's like
what? So safe to say I did not sign up. So.
You want to put your whole life savings down on a year of membership?
Right.
One free show.
So anywho, we've been talking for an hour and 35 minutes.
Really?
Does it feel like it? You guys have recording fatigue?
Isn't an hour and a half my usual runtime?
Yeah, honestly.
Maybe. I don't know.
That.
Yeah, it could be.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we obviously love to catch up with you, but we also wanted to just shed any light we can on what you're doing here because we're, always impressed by your ventures and accomplishments.
Yeah, I think you had said, too, that the first time we talked to you, you're working on some things, and the next time you had a totally different set of projects, and now totally different ones from last time, too. It's pretty cool, like, checking in every couple of months and seeing what's up.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better about moving on from things, like idea-wise. And the good thing about having a place where there's like new exhibits is like, okay, you only have something up for a month or 2 weeks, and then you start thinking about a whole different body of work by a whole different artist. And so it doesn't, it can be a little harder with your own work.
Yeah.
It's easier to get fixated on certain ideas. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I love the exhibit that's up now. The next exhibit is opening, well, it goes on view April 6th, but the opening reception is April 15th. It's going to be called Enough is Never Enough by Jameson Edson. It's primarily their Polaroid photographs with some other instant formats, and then, a few other smaller works. And then in May, there's going to be one of my favorite, probably my second favorite contemporary artist. Her name's Kayla Biono. She's based in Chicago. She grew up in Detroit. She makes these like amazing colored pencil drawings that like I'm obsessed with. I actually have one here that I can show you when we're done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm really excited and hopeful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fuck yeah, I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. So, shoe bones.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In Salem, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Come
as
to
always.
the fucking gallery, people. Excellent. Blah, 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 blah.
Boston Art Podcast is an independent DIY production by Brian Huntress and Theodora Earthworms. The information contained in this episode represents the views and opinions of the original creators or our guests, and does not represent any institution, organization, or business. Find us on Instagram at Boston Art Podcast, and tune in for a new episode every Friday. Thank you for listening.